Welcome back. This tutorial is on texturing the upper saucer hull. If you like these tutorials or find them helpful, then please remember to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell icon to be notified when I post new tutorials.
Picking up where we left off last time, we're going to model a section to make it a little easier to put a texture in GIMP for what we call the rust ring. So Shift A, add a mesh, plane, good stuff. I only want one set of verts, two verts, and what we're going to do is we're going to tab into it, Control R, put it right down the center there, so as soon as you hit Control R, right mouse click, and then A to deselect. I'm going to pick the outside four vertices, X and verts. That leaves me with just the center line, and the origin is already in the center of that center line. By the way, I'm on my bounding box center, so that's good enough. I'm going to tab out and scale this down. All right, great. Grab X, and let's move it to this second ring here. All right. So scale, grab X, okay, so not bad. So tab into this, grab X, I want it right in the center, and grab X. You could make it just slightly larger, but whatever. All right, so not bad. Now I've got an object, and I want to get out of bounding box center. So Shift S, cursor to center, just to be on the safe side, right? Switch this to 3D cursor, and we're going to R, rotate. And I want to go, here's the light, and here's one segment beyond that light. So I'm going to leave it there, tab into it, A to select everything, both verts, everything. Well, it sounds so grandiose. All right, and from a top view, we're going to hit spin. If you're doing this like I am, we no longer need this to be 360. I am going to leave it at 400 because that's nice and round. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this angulation until I get to here. I want to zoom in, and we are almost there. Okay, so for me that was 129 degrees. Marvelous. It doesn't really matter what color you make this, because we're not going to use the color. So we could go to materials, and we could pick, I don't know, black is starkly different than white. And I'm going to include our camera, which is in lower layer 4, and I'm going to render this. Be back when it's done. Okay, so we have a nicely rendered rust ring, F3, saucer top, rust ring, and save that. Okay, F11. I'm going to move this rust ring out here where we won't see it anymore. I'm going to select lower layer 5 so that it's all alone. All that's left is modeling this little registry here. Now you could probably do this, again, you could do this in GIMP probably quite easily. So, well, let's put that to the test. All right, here's our saucer top. When you save, by the way, when you save in GIMP, its default format is .xcf, just FYI. You know what? I don't know. I've never tried to import XCF into Blender. But I know Blender loves PNG, so it doesn't matter. All right, so now I'm going to, where was that? File, I think. Yeah, open as layers. And I'm going to go and grab some of the stuff that we were just making, like our rust ring, our boxes, and our registry, right? Open those up. All right, so I'm going to get rid of the, I'm going to make invisible the rust ring and the boxes. I just want to see the registry. So if I get rid of that, we're back to where we were with the grid, hull base, and our reference drawing. All right, so now here's our registry, and I want to see it along with this reference drawing that we've got. So I've got my registry selected, and I'm going to go over here where it says opacity. I'm just going to turn this down to 50. Oh, come on. Half. All right, so now, are you kidding me? Huh. That looks like it lines up. I don't understand. How about that? I rotated it. I rotated the thing. All right, Control Z, Z, Z. I'm just going to open this up again. Discard. I don't want to keep those. Go to my tutorial saucer top. Hang on. I now understand my father's frustration with me. There it is. There's the image. All right. I'm going to re-import his layers. File. Open his layers. I'm going to pick rust string, boxes, and registry. Marvelous. Great. Make my rust string invisible. My box is invisible. That leaves me with my registry. I'm going to make invisible my grid and the base color. I've got my registry selected. I'm going to take this down to 50%, and I'm going to zoom in, view, zoom, 100. I look forward to anybody giving me hints as to how I can run around in GIMP a little better. My God, that works well. Everything's all lined up. If it's not, you can, of course, change the scale of your layer to make it fit. I am thrilled. Now, this also leads to a whole nother part of what we're going to do. So I'm going to bring back the visibility of my base, right? I'm going to take my registry opacity back up to 100. And what the heck, I'll throw in the saucer grid just to see what it looks like. All right, so now I'm going to change the mode on my registry. I'm going to change this to darken only. Now I see the color and I see the grid. And remember, we reduced the visibility of the grid because it's only supposed to be barely visible. Well, the registry, believe it or not, to our eyes, we compensate. It looks black to us. But the real world is a little different. Yes, the paint used for these decals is black, but nothing in the world is really, really black. There's this really fascinating material that they have created that is the closest thing, it really absorbs a tremendous amount of light and doesn't let it bounce back to your eyes, because there's no light bouncing back to you from that. I think it's a paint, but it's got all these tiny little nanofibers in it that redirect the light. It looks black, and it really looks black. I mean, it looks dark black, but because of the processing and light being shown on the model and the specularity of the paint and so on, it's actually gray if you look at it. Even the star background compared to, say, outside the image here, the star background is actually just a dark gray. And this is about as dark as the black of space out here, but it's not perfect. So if we want it to look like how it looked on screen, we don't want it to be perfectly black. Now, this is entirely a personal choice. You may absolutely leave it 100% black. You can do whatever you want. It's your model. But I don't think it looks real this way. So I've got it on darken only, and I'm going to highlight this. Oh, dear. All right, so I'm going to highlight this, and actually that's just about perfect. It's not totally black. Maybe I'll make this 90. It's not totally black, but it's not really gray either. And it should look okay on our model. We can always come back and adjust that, but that looks nice. Now we're going to do pretty much the same kind of consideration for our tutorial boxes, right? I'm going to make them visible. There they are. Now it's got a white background. So we're going to change that to darken only. Okay. And I'm going to change the opacity to, let's see here. Let's make that 50. Before I do that, take this back to normal, take this back to 100. I want to select these boxes. Well, you know what? I'm just going to duplicate this. I'm going to duplicate the whole layer. Okay, so I've got top boxes and another one that says top boxes. I'm going to change the name on this to top saucer yellow boxes. Right? With that one selected, I'm going to edit, cut. Okay, cool. Let's just Control X. Excellent. Control X. All right, so now all I've got are yellow boxes left on this one. I'm going to make that invisible. Go to my tutorial saucer top boxes. And I'm going to get rid of the yellow boxes. So I'm going to highlight this, Control X. Highlight this, Control X. Okay, great. All right, so now I've got just my rectangular boxes. Let's do what we were doing before. I'm going to go to darken only, and I'm going to take this down to 50%, maybe more, 40%. Whoops. That looks about right. Now I'm going to go to my tutorial saucer yellow boxes. I'm not exactly sure what to pick with this. All right, not screen. Overlay, perhaps? No. Oh, I wonder if difference would do it. No. Looks like if you pick darken only and leave it at 100%, it's actually not bad. But we could no doubt change that. All right. Lumina darken only looks nice. And we can change that to also similarly something like, 50 is too little. Try 75. 75% isn't bad. So they're there, they're barely visible, and they make a nice addition to our texture. So if I go to view and we go to say 50% just to see the whole thing, we've barely got a grid visible. We have our registry, which is black, but it's been reduced in opacity, the same as our boxes here. And I'm going to bring in our rustering now. And here's where this starts to get a little different. I'm actually not even going to touch this yet. I'm going to add another layer. I'm going to call this rust ring clouds. Okay, cool. So we've got a nice clear layer here, transparent with absolutely nothing on it. And I believe under filters, is it noise? Render, noise, patterns. Difference, difference clouds. I don't want difference yet. I want clouds. I'm trying to remember where that is. Let me go find it again. Told you I'm not an expert in GIMP. I'm not sure this is what I did last time, but filters, render, noise, and pick solid noise. And it does give you a cloud-like feature, but we're going to have to increase our detail. Let's see here. Okay, so we've got some kind of cloud here. All right, I've really increased it. I'm going to tell it okay. So we've rendered some clouds. And then I think you can go to colors and pick, I think, hue chroma. I've forgotten which one. I know that there's a way of changing that. Colors. Nope. There's probably a dozen ways of doing this, but pretty sure I did it with. Well, we could always do it this way, I guess. It says preview. Okay, so turn up the chroma, and you'll see what hue you're set at. All right, so you just want to adjust this until it's brownish. We're going to turn this up, the lightness, right? Grab this and crank it up a little bit, because we want this to be tan, not actually brown. So we could probably turn that down a little. Nope. I'm going to turn it up. Okay. And I'm going to leave it like that. All right. Tell it okay. And then probably colors. Let's see if we can change the... I would change the grayscale. How do we do that here? I guess I grab that and I leave it alone. All right. There we go. Output levels, tone it down a little bit. It's not so bad. I'm going to tell it okay. All right. So it's not exactly what we want, but it's getting there. Now I want to go back to our rust ring, and there is a selection tool here. So I'm going to grab that fuzzy selection tool, leave its defaults, and click on the rust ring. Okay? So it's selected this black area. So now if I go back up and turn on these clouds, the selection is still here. I'm going to edit and copy, right? I'm going to make this invisible and this invisible. Tutorial top yellow boxes. I'm going to create a new level, and I'm going to call this rust ring clouds color. Good enough. Okay, I can't spell color. Okay. The British will tell me I'm still missing a U. Edit, paste. All right, great. All right, so now I've got a rust ring of sorts. It's kind of tannish, but not exactly what we want. So zoom into 100%, run over here. We're going to do what we were doing before. We've got this layer selected. Mode, I'm going to make darken only. Nope. Let's try multiply. Hang on. Multiply looks like it works, but I wonder if we can do something like color. Color. Ooh, not bad. But let's take down the opacity. All right, so I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to make it, say, 25%. That's not too shabby. All right, so color works moderately well. So does soft light. Screen and dodge do not. Darken's okay, but multiply was better. Wonder what burn looks like. Too much. All right, so I'm going to say multiply. Oh, or overlay. What does overlay look like? Overlay is not bad. It's just a little too bright. So I'm going to go back to multiply. And I've got my kind of a tan layer exactly where I want it. I'm probably going to reduce that. 25 seems a little much. So let's take it down to 20. And that's not bad. All right. So now, if I zoom out to 50%, and we can see everything on the screen, or almost everything. We've got our hull color, right? We've got our grid. We've got our registry. We've got our rust ring. We've got our weird rhomboids back here and the two yellow squares. So this is enough for us to start, but we could also, well, there's a couple of more things. We're going to want those boxes. So now I don't need this tutorial reference anymore. I'm going to delete that rust ring reference. I'm going to leave the rust ring clouds for now for a completely different reason. All right, so now I'm going to make pretty much everything invisible except for our reference. We're going to want to put some streaks here, and we're going to want to make these boxes back here. So, I don't know, make a new layer. I haven't done this yet in GIMP. We can run here and grab this red, sample it, right, by grabbing this. There we go, and add it, which I've already done. That's right here. Tell it OK. Go back to our image, and I'm going to add a. Well, I already added a layer, but I'm going to call this stripes. And I'm going to grab the square or rectangular selection tool, and I'm going to zoom in, view, zoom, and I'm going to go to 200%. Scroll back till I can see this area, and I'm going to just make a box larger than the area that I need. Go to the paint bucket and fill it with red. Okay, great. So that's my set of red stripes, and I'm going to make another layer, and we're going to call this gray, dark gray. Okay, I'm going to run back to Gary's reference, and here's a dark gray accent color. I'm going to grab this, select gray, add it. Here it is. Tell it OK. Run back here. I'm going to make a new. So I've already got my new layer. I'm going to turn off my red stripe and pick my square selection tool, and I'm going to just pick in here, and then I'm going to pick my fill tool and fill in my dark gray. Okay, great. So if I turn on stripes and gray, I don't need this here. I'm going to go to stripes. I'm going to Control X and Control X. Okay. Now I'm also going to grab my got my red stripes. I'm going to grab the move tool. I'm just going to whoops. I'm going to put my X right on the red box and move it so that it's a little more even on both sides here. Not bad. Probably let's trim this down just a little bit. Control X. Okay, that looks okay. I just am never satisfied with this, am I? There we go. All right. So now, take a look at everything again. %. All right. We've got our rust ring, registry. We've got our red stripes and gray stripe. We've got our gray boxes, our yellow boxes. The only thing left would be adding some space dirt, if you will. So I'm going to create a new blank one. I'm going to call it dirt. It's way up here. I'm going to turn everything else off except our reference image. All right. Go over here to your color, click on it, and put your indicator down here in the orange area and pick something that looks brownish or tan. That's not bad. Call it okay. Now there is a brush tool here. When you pick the brush, you can change the size of the brush. Right now it's fairly small. And you can pick the type of brush. So I'm going to pick a noise-like texture here. You can pick any one of these. It doesn't really matter. All right, now if we look at our reference image, you note brown and green, if you want them, streaks heading down the ship. And then there's some brown, especially on the back of the bulge. So we're going to do some dirt streaks up front by just clicking in some areas. Make these things of different lengths and a little further in, some of them not so far in, and different thicknesses and such. All right, now I believe there's filter, blur, and then there's linear motion blur, which comes in really handy. And I'm going to increase the length fairly significantly. You can see what happens to the blurs. They get kind of evened out and elongated. I'm going to leave the angle at 0. And that's pretty good. I'm going to tell it okay. So now I've got some space dirt coming in on the front of the hull of the Enterprise. All right, so if I turn everything else back on, it looks a little bright. So I've got my dirt selected, and I'm going to go to, let's try darken. Multiply, better yet. Oh, too much. All right, so I'm going to take our 100% and reduce it to 50. And now we've got, because of the different thicknesses and so on, the amount of coloration we put in, we've got variations in tone and length, and it looks kind of like dirt. That's actually working out fairly well. If you don't like how it's looking, you can change multiply to something else, like burn, or let's see, what else would do? Screen maybe, but I don't like how those look. Wow. Nope, I'm going to take it to multiply and just leave it. All right, so that's not bad. What I am going to do is click on these clouds and make them visible. So, but I'm going to reduce the visibility of this to 50%. All right, so there's half. I can see details, and there is an eraser over here somewhere. Where are you? I know it's here. I used it earlier today. Eraser tool. All right. All right. Now, it's going to keep whatever you had selected last. So I'm going to go to fuzzy selection here. And I'm going to change the size to something fairly substantial. And aspect ratio I'm going to leave at 0. Spacing is 10. Hardness is 75. Well, let's see what happens when we click on our coloration. It pretty much gets rid of everything. So that's fine. I'm going to go to about the halfway mark and just go from edge of the halfway mark here, from top to bottom. All right, and I'm going to clear out the front. I don't really want it all that dirty. All right, and around the edges of the back is fine, but I'm going to reduce the size of this. All right, let's make this a 200. Okay, cool. Matter of fact, I'm going to use this as a guide. Here we are. Nice. Get rid of this. Okay, that's not bad. A little irregular, kind of how you want noise to be. All right, and I'm going to grab our, make sure that our rust ring is selected. Okay, great. So I'm going to go here and let's try multiply and turn down the percentage to something like 33. 20, maybe less. Wow. 15. Not bad. What I would really like to do is go to this erasure tool, and I'm going to pick something like this cloudy little thing here. And I'm just going to kind of randomly erase bits. I don't really want much here right in the center. All right, that's cool. All right, just so long as it looks a little randomized and not, no great big long streaks or anything like that. That's not too shabby. All right, cool. So we've got some dirt in the back. We've got some space dirt from the front. We've got the rust ring. We've got pretty much everything we need in order to start texturing. All right, now, Blender likes PNG, so I'm going to file. Well, first I'm going to file save. All right, so save all of the work that we've done. Now I'm going to file and export as. And we're going to pick PNG. There it is. And export. So it's not overwriting our default format. We're creating a new copy as PNG. Now, while we're doing that, I want a grayscale version of this image with some things missing. All right, the paint that they used, I don't think changed specularity. If you want to have differences in specularity for your text, your red stripes, your gray stripe, your boxes, your yellow things, you can leave them in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the rust ring and the dirt, right? I'm going to get rid of my dark gray, my stripes. I'm going to get rid of my yellow boxes, my gray boxes, and I'm going to get rid of my registry, at least make it not visible. And let's see. All right, we'll leave it like this for now. So File, and we're going to export as. And this time we're going to change the name. Tutorials Top Saucer Color Grid Final. So I'm going to get rid of color and grid. Right? Give this a new name. We're going to call this Top Saucer Gray Final. And export that as PNG. And here's why. All right, we already saved our image as it was before. So I'm just going to close this. It's going to ask, hey, you've made changes. Just discard. I don't care. I'm getting rid of this for now, too. I don't care. And we're going to it's easier to do it. Oops, not here, but here. All right. So let's change how this viewed details. Date. There we go. And here's our tutorial Top Saucer Gray. Oh, that's fine. What I want to do is I want to open that with GIMP. All right. So here it is. I'm going to view, zoom, and let's go to 100%. I want to see what this looks like. Alrighty. So now I'm going to go to Colors, Saturation. I'm going to grab this scale here and I'm going to take it all the way down to 0. So now I've got a grayscale of all the dirt, the rust ring, right? And this in back. I have made an error. I don't want the saucer itself, that color for the saucer, to actually be reflected in gray. So I'm going to open up my color final again. And, oh, nope, sorry. There we go. There we are. All right, I'm going to do this all over again. So I'm going to leave the rust ring in and the dirt. I'm going to get rid of my dark gray, my stripes, my yellow boxes, my gray boxes, my registry. There's my grid. That's fine. But I want to add a new layer here real fast. I'm going to call this white. And we're going to go back to black and white, switch this, get the paint bucket, and paint in white. Now, I want to zoom in to 100% at least. And we can see the gray of the saucer grid. So that'll work. But, you know, if it's too much, we may have to come back and change the opacity of this. But at least the background is white now. So if I File, Export As, and I want to grab that gray final again, and we're going to export and overwrite it. Export. Okay, cool. I'm going to kill that. I'm going to kill this. And I'm going to kill that. Discard changes. All right, I'm going to run back out here. Let's grab that gray final and open in GIMP. All right. So now, if you jump in, zoom to at least 100%. There's color, but the background is now white. And we're going to go to Colors, Saturation, and take it down to 0. Tell it OK. All right, now everything should be gray. There should be no colors. It should be essentially black and white. And if you're unsure, Colors, Saturation. I wonder if there's a simple desaturate, which would be nice. All right, so now we're going to File, Save. Oh, nope. Export, File, Overwrite, Tutorial Gray. There we go. Marvelous. All right, so we've got a color version and we've got a grayscale. Let's go back to Blender. And I want my saucer top. Here it is. We're finally going to get to do something that I've been wanting to do since we've started. Select the saucer top. I'm going to hit T to get rid of that for right now. I'm going to split this area. We don't do this much. Right? And we're going to change this one on the left to UV Image Editor, I think. All right. Tab into this, A, and pick, I think it's U for unwrap, and I'm going to do project from view. I've obviously picked something wrong. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be UV image editor. There we go. Good. Now, it still has the last thing that we rendered. I'm going to hit X, and here it is in all its glory. And I guess I could do project from view bounds, and that now takes it and brings it right to the edge, right? All right, cool. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the hull gray on here. Oh, I'm sorry, tab, minus the hull gray, and we're going to hit new and call this upper saucer hull. I'm going to leave it at diffuse for right now. We're going to go to the color here, but we're not going to click on the color bar. Click on this little dot over here on the right hand side and pick image texture. Click on open. Let's go to wherever you were saving your files. I'm going to pick my tutorial top saucer color grid final, right? Open. And if we hit tab, let's go to texture and tab. Look at that. And it matches perfectly. We've got our dirt, we've got our registry, we've got our rust ring, we've got our stripes, and the boxes. Okay, so far this is looking pretty good, but if you were to render it, it wouldn't look all that great, at least not yet. So now, I actually don't need this anymore. I'm going to go to, I'm going to hold down Control and the left arrow key to go into the node editor. And here is our texture, such as it is. And we're going to add some nodes to this because this is just diffuse. Hang on one second. I'm sorry. It was time for me to give my cat his medication. And those of you who have cats know that the struggle is real. All right. Now, as I was saying, we have to make some changes to our texture because we've imported it in as a diffuse texture. And that won't match what we've got on our materials. So I'm going to make some changes here. So we've got our diffuse, which is fine. But we also want to add a glossy texture. So shader glossy. There we go. And hang on. We're going to want the same, pardon me, same color, the hex from our hull gray here. So hex, paste it in, and cool, we've now got that. So now we're going to want to mix these together. It's the next step, so Shift A, mix shader, pull this up here and drop it on that. They call it a noodle. God help me, they call it a noodle. All right, and we're just going to drag this and drop this in. Now, it means it's half glossy and half diffuse. If we, hang on. If we pull everything in. So we've got lights and everything. Oh, we will have lights and everything if I do that. All right. So now I'm just going to switch this over to rendered down here. And it's okay, but it's not really doing what we want. Plus, I'm going to go back to our environment here, background. I'm going to take the color back down to pitch black and take the influence down to 0. All right, so it's doing something. It's half texture, half glossy, and So where there's no dirt, space dirt or anything, it kind of matches our earlier material. But we can go a step further. Shift A. We're going to add an image texture. So texture, image. And we're going to go grab our grayscale image in our tutorial area. So here's our gray final with the white background, right? And I don't know why, Shift A, but grab a converter and math. I was playing with this before, and this says add, but what works best is if I go to subtract, grab this color, throw it in the top value, and make that value 0.8, I think. And we're going to use this as a factor to control the difference between the diffuse dirt textures and the gloss, which should be the hull. Now, you already should have seen that that has changed. It's no longer as dark. All right, so I'm going to call that hull finished, and let's control right arrow key and come back out here. Now, I'm going to grab a camera somewhere. Let's see. What would be a... It's all right, but... All right, so I'm just going to add a camera. So Control 0. And, I'm going to change this down to our normal 2 megapixel. All right, and we've got the whole ship in here, and we've got our lights and so on. So I'm going to Shift D to duplicate this camera, Control 0. I'm going to rotate Y so that we can see this a little more head-on. Grab Z, rotate Y, rotate Z, rotate Y. No, that's too much. Rotate Y. All right, so that's not bad. It'll give us some angulation. We can see whether the specular highlights and such work. Let's render this image out. It wasn't turning out exactly like what I wanted, so I'm going to I'm really pushing my PC here. I'm going to shut down my GIMP. All right, better. Yeah. All right, as you can see this rendering out. I threw a light closer to the hull just to bring some of the differences into relief. I got it too close to the hull, but you can still see what I wanted you to see. Where we've got grid lines, it is not as shiny. Right, so you kind of lose them in the light because of the shine of the hull. You can see them if you're close enough to the texture because it's slightly darker than the hull gray, right? But they only show under specific circumstances. And wherever there's dirt, it has changed the hull specularity. I'm going to move that light because that's bugging me. Now, maybe you'll find some other texturing tutorials out there for Blender. There are tons of them. I came up with this by messing around with the different components and seeing what rendered the way I wanted it to. Because we took the text for our registry out of the grayscale mapping for the specularity, it retains the kind of, it's dark, but it's not quite black 100%. It's more like a very dark gray. The grid lines are visible under the right circumstances, either close enough to the hull under even lighting, or where bright light hits the hull and you see the specularity of the hull material, like all the shininess on just the material on the rest of the ship and on the BC deck. The color is the same, but the grid lines are slightly different specularity, and so is the dirt, but not, and so is the rust ring. That'll actually be more diffuse instead of glossy. But the overall effect is similar to the original series USS Enterprise. All right. So it took me a while to show you. I'd probably go back and tone down the dirt streaks in the front and the dirt clouds in the back. I'd change it to make it a little less obvious. But this is basically how we're going to texture everything. I think the satin finish, which is how I originally heard the paint job on the Enterprise 11-foot model referred to, I think is reflected fairly well here. We've got all the major components. We've got the dirt in the back of the hull. We've got all the markings in place. We've got the registry in place. We can barely see the grid that Gene Roddenberry wanted, that the effects guys didn't want. We've got the rust ring in front. Now, the reason why I showed you this is because this is the kind of the easiest part to texture. We're going to do the bottom the same way, bottom of the hull. That's almost as easy. The neck is the same because we do it as a side shot. But then the rest becomes a little tougher to do because of the shapes of cylinders and so on. We can either break it into pieces and texture each piece as a flat piece, or see if we can texture it as a cylinder, which makes it a little more difficult, especially since there are so many disparate sections. But you should be able to see kind of what we want. And if you want to tone down that grid specularity, all you'd have to do is in the grayscale image, make it even lighter. We don't want to touch the color portion of it, but we could make the specularity a little less by the diffuse a little less, a little more shiny by making it a lighter color. In any case, I think this is turning out fairly well. It's a lot more accurate than many of the Enterprise models that we've seen. I've shown you the references, and I will add where to get that Airborne font, Airborne 2 font, so that you can do this fairly rapidly like you saw me do. Thanks a lot. Don't forget to save your progress. File, save, of course, and I will see you next time where we texture another section of the hull. Thanks.